I'm at urgent care right now because I have an abscess on my hand. This is what happens when you do stupid shit.
Disclaimer. This video, in the truest sense of the word, is meant solely to be harm reduction. A lot of YouTubers say that and don't really mean it. Well, I do. Don't do the dumb stuff I have done, and I sincerely hope YouTube censor doesn't falsely detect this as any form of glorification. Also, and if you don't know yet, I'm going to be advertising our new Sober Bud Sobriety Discord server that you should totally come and join. So far there are 3 of us, it's beaming with positivity, and I can already tell that me and the other 2 members are already going to be lifelong best friends. Curious? I thought so. Seriously, come join us. What do you got to lose? Okay, let's start the video. The branded Harmonti channel. What is up, fellas? Welcome back to the channel. If you've been watching for a while, you know my signature way, and I didn't invent this, I'm sure a lot of YouTubers do this, is to clap to start the video. Okay, ready? Oh, I can't do it. And why? Well, let me tell you why. So I vlogged on this channel one day. I went to the gym with my dad. I talk about how I've been lifting weights for 6 months. Haven't been going to the gym lately. But if I don't go to the gym, I at least try to do at-home exercises. I try to do 100 push-ups every other day, and I have dumbbells. So you can essentially do like the same workout you'd get in a gym at home if you have the right dumbbells. Well, yesterday, I get down in the push-up position, and I'm trying to do push-ups, which has never been a problem in the past. Well, yesterday, I get in the position. All of a sudden, my right hand hurts, and I couldn't even do 1 push-up. And I immediately panicked. Because I'm a hypochondriac, anytime I have a physical ailment or illness of any sorts, my mind goes to the worst. Now, this video will be me explaining why my hand occasionally hurts. So I'm going to kind of just leave it there for now. My hand hurts today. Couldn't do a push-up yesterday. I'm worried, not going to lie. But it made me remember a perfect story to tell to you guys on YouTube. Before I go any further, this video will be the definition of harm reduction. Basically, this story I'm going to tell you should scare so many away from doing what I did to injure this hand.
I can't take it, man. My arm! My fucking arm!
Now, I don't think YouTube is going to recognize it as harm reduction. In fact, I'm actually pretty nervous on what to title it. I thought about titling it, Almost Got My Hand Amputated Because of IV Drug Use. Now, that is a very controversial drug title. Even though it's harm reduction, YouTube may not know it's harm reduction. And one thing I worry about is, like, my catalog up to now, every video I curse, and I talk about drugs. I tell drug stories, I talk about withdrawing off of drugs. I wonder, is my channel going to get, like, buried or blacklisted? And get this. You know the DSM? I think it's called the DSM. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. The DSM-5, I looked it up. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The DSM, the new version, includes a new mental disease that pertains specifically to the stress, anxiety, and depression that go along with having a YouTube channel. No joke, you can look it up. They added it to the DSM. People are so worried of getting demonetized, age-restricted, censored, that it now has its own mental illness in the DSM. And I know that fear all too well. That fear of, like, if I upload this video, am I going to get, like, a strike? Am I talking about too much controversy? And, oh, I clapped. Ow, it hurts. Anyways, let's get into the story. But before I go any further, if you're new to this channel, like, comment, subscribe. Brandon Harmonti up next. Up next, Brandon Harmonti. Up next. My goal is to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. Help me reach that goal. I'm acting weird today. I apologize. I'm acting weird. Also, I gotta warn you, if you're squeamish and don't like hearing gross medical stories, this might not be the video for you. But I promise, this really should be harm reduction. So for the sake of, I guess, not brevity, I'm gonna kind of combine two stories in this. There's gonna be the main one, the meat and potatoes, that'll come later. But there was also a time before this where I had a very similar ailment in 2016, and I'll breeze through this story really quickly, I swear. So my veins have always been really just bad. You know, a lot of people use this. My girlfriend used to call this her honey hole. I could never do that. I have very crappy small veins, and I used to use either this one, which is why, I don't know if you can see the scar. Like, that's from years ago. Just, see, I gotta be cryptic. Like, I really have to try to not use, like, trigger words. But also my hands. So, if you look at this hand, do you see that right there? I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to take a picture under better lighting, and I'll put it up on the screen right here if the picture turns out good. But in 2016, I was plunging into my hand, and didn't think anything about it. I had missed hundreds of shots in my day. I wasn't very good at plunging myself. From the rest of the video, I'm going to refer to it as plunging. You know what I'm talking about. So I think I missed a plunge into my hand, and I didn't think about it for a day. And then 2 days later, I woke up, and I was like, ooh, like my hand is getting really red. And then I went to work, and it just kept getting redder and bigger throughout the day. By the time I got home from work that night, my hand was like the size, I wouldn't say of a football. It was the size of like a kid's football. You know those little kids' footballs? And I took a picture of it, and I sent it to my sister. Me and my sister, best friends. We share everything with each other. And I knew she wasn't going to rat on me to my mom. And she immediately texted back, and she said, Brandon, what is wrong with your hand, dude? And I thought it was like kind of funny, like, oh, it's just swelled up, I guess. It'll work itself out. And she texted, she said, Brandon, please go to the emergency room. Now, most people who do drugs, and they really kind of inflict a lot of harm on themselves, are afraid to go to the ER. They're afraid to be judged. In fact, I think this was before Reddit got really popular. This was back in the blue light drugs forum days. Pretty much like Reddit are drugs, but old forums format. There were constantly posts of people saying, I missed a shot in my arm, and it's turning red, it's swelling up, and everybody would say, go to the freaking hospital. Go to the hospital now. And the original poster didn't want to. They never wanted to go. They were like, can I fix it by myself? Like,
Please, don't. It'll get better. It doesn't even hurt.
I'm putting hot compresses on it. And by the way, I hope you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, when you miss a plunge, your arm or hand can get infected. You can get amputated. There's a lot. Necrosis, cellulitis, abscesses. Basically, when you use plunges, yeah, you could get amputated. You could really screw yourself up.
Oh, shit. Goddamn, Jim, how long you had to? Just a few days.
So I texted my sister and I said, don't worry, I'll go to the ER if it gets worse. I was Googling it. Everybody kept saying use hot compresses. One guy told me mix between hot and cold. Put hot rag on it and then put ice on it. I was doing every method in the book. But I still had to work during this time. And I'll never forget, I went into work. I was doing a day shift at this nursing home I was working at. And this girl that worked there, who I was very good friends with, she actually bailed me out of jail when my family wouldn't. So I really cherish our friendship. I hid my drug use from her, though. But I remember I walked into the storage closet, and she was sitting there setting up her trays. And I had to reach for a trash bag, and she looked. And I had a glove on, one of those latex gloves. And she looked at my hand, and she went, "Oh my God, Brandon, what happened to your hand?" And what lie did I come up with? I think I said, oh, I punched a wall. Or no, I said I got bit by a spider. And she was like, right, you got hit by a spider on your hand? Now, actually, I think she believed me. She was like, "Brandon, that looks really bad. You should go to the hospital." And I was like, I might go eventually. But I knew I had to finish this work day. And actually, after she said that, I was like, yeah, I definitely have to face my fears and go to the ER. But to be honest, I thought it would fix itself. I was young and stupid when this happened. But mind you, I had to work a double shift that day, which means you go in at 6:30 in the morning and you work until 8 at night. So at night, I had to work with this dude named Matt, and he also didn't know I did drugs. I'm sure he suspected it, but I used latex gloves as sort of like a cloak the whole day. And also my hand was really fat and swollen, so I could barely fit the glove on. Well, that night, I'm like doing dishes with Matt, and I remember he went, "Oh, I didn't know you had a tattoo." And I was like, "What?" And he went, "On your hand, you have a tattoo on your hand?" And I guess the way the latex was on my hand, and my hand was kind of black or something, he thought it was a tattoo. And I said, no, I just got bit by a spider. And he went, "Oh, dude, you should go to the hospital. Like, dude, like, you can go home if you want. Like, you need to go to the hospital right now." And I was like, "Don't worry, man. I'll work till the end of the shift, blah, blah, blah." Stuck it out, stayed till 8 at night. And I just directly left work, went immediately to the ER. I was shaking in my boots. I was terrified. I was like, they're going to judge me. They probably really don't like it. I bet you doctors and nurses hate it when junkies come in with their dumb, junkie decision-making skills, and they take the bed of somebody who might be dying of cancer. So I lied. I went to the ER. I said I got bit by a spider. I saw it. That little bastard bit me. I saw him do it. And they said, all right. And they took me back to see a doctor, and I waited there. I just sat there waiting. Finally, this young doctor comes in, and he says, Mr. Harmonti, what are we dealing with, spider bite? And I said, yeah. And he said, let me see it. And I put my hand out, and I showed it to him. And he immediately, he looked at it, and he went, all right, time to tell the truth. Do you inject drugs? And I went, yeah. And he went, all right, let's see, this is an abscess. Don't worry, I'll drain it out for you. We'll get you sent home tonight. You don't have to stay. I was relieved. I was like, sweet. He can drain this puppy. And I remember I had my hand out, and he was like, I think he had 2 nurses come in. I don't know how they did it, but I think they I think they held a warm towel on it for a while, and then the doctor just dug into it. That's why I permanently have a slit right here. He had to slit it with a little surgical blade. He drained it. It smelled really bad while he was draining it. Didn't hurt that bad. And he said, all right, bud, you should be good. Here's some antibiotics to be safe. And I just went on home, and I said, I'll never make a stupid decision like that again. Well, fast forward to 2021. Now, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on the channel before, but in 2020 was when I first got Wondershare Filmora, which is a great editing software for beginners, and I started making YouTube channels. If you look at my description, you can find that old channel. It's in the description. And I think I started off sober when I was making the videos. But I've always said this is, even if I'm not trying to find drugs, drugs always find a way, they manage a way to find me. And in 2020, somebody in my life, won't say names, I protect privacy on this channel, just started giving me Suboxone. And I found out that if I would put 1 milligram under my tongue, you know, the little strips, I would work for hours editing, days of hours. And I'm not gonna lie, I put a lot of work into that channel. So old habits die hard, and I totally do not recommend doing this. Somehow I got the brilliant idea in my head. I was like, well, you can put subs under your tongue. What if can you plunge them? Maybe you can plunge them. And I think I had the things you need to plunge with at my mom's house because she's diabetic. And I went to her house, got a couple of them, and I came home, and I remember I was fixing up, I think it was like 1 or 2 milligrams. Put the water in it into the little spoon, and started to stir it around, and put a little cotton swab on it. And I remember it was really hard to suck the liquid up into the plunger thing. And I started doing that. And I don't even really necessarily think it did much, but it became a very bad habit. Every time I got them for the week, and I would only do them for about 3 days at a time, I started doing that. Bad decision. This whole channel should just be called the I Made Bad Decisions channel. I just realized every story I tell involves my own stupidity. Well, one night, I think I plunged up an old Suboxone mixed with water, and by the way, like, my hands were always the spot that I would go for. I don't know why. It's very unsafe to do because there's a lot of bones and muscles in your hands. And I shot it in, went about my business. I don't even think I realized that I missed the shot entirely. Now, if you miss a shot of a street drug, hopefully it's like liquidy. You know what I mean? It's like liquid. But when you miss a shot of sub, the reason it takes so long to pull up to the plunger, you're essentially shooting like sticky sub liquid into you. So you better hope you hit. Because if you miss, it's bad news. And let me tell you, this didn't end well. Next day I woke up, I was fine, went about my day, didn't think about it. Didn't even know I missed. That night I went to bed, slept great. It wasn't until the next morning when I woke up. The first thing I realized when I woke up, I was like, man, my hand and arm hurts. So I got out of bed, and I was trying to make a fist, and I couldn't. My hand, basically all I could do was this, and my hand really hurt. And I was like, dang, I must have missed a shot or something. I wasn't too worried about it at this point. Well, one of my tenants is kind of an older dude. Love the guy. Sometimes I help him bring groceries in. So he said, hey, can you help me bring these groceries in? And I went outside, and I always like to grab all the groceries in one, because I hate making trips. So I had my left hand filled with grocery bags, and I tried to get a bunch with my right, and then I realized I couldn't even lift one grocery bag with my right hand. So I had to take 2 trips getting his groceries with my left hand. And I thought to myself, this will blow over in a day or two. But to be safe, I'll start putting hot compresses on. If you don't know what a hot compress is, it's basically a folded towel you run under the hot sink. You put it on whatever, maybe you got a spider bite or whatever, and that usually will sort of help. Well, it didn't help at all. And I think I went to bed that night thinking, this will blow over. Woke up the next day and I looked at it and it was starting to get really red and the bump was starting to get really big. And now I couldn't even really do anything with my hand. It got to the point where, like, the day before I could go like this, but at this point I could just go like this. And I looked, and if I pressed down on it, it would leave like a white hand stain. So I immediately, I'm starting to freak out. And I go on Reddit, and I'm like Googling like what happens when this and blah, blah, blah. I eventually found an internet forum filled with people that, do this sort of thing. And I remember I made a post and I was like, hey, listen, I think I missed a shot. I think it's starting to get infected. Can somebody please help me? Like, can you direct message me? And a couple people, two people said, yeah, I'll help you out. So this one guy direct messaged me. This wasn't on Reddit. I think this was on like Blue Light or something. So this first guy messages me and he's like, hey, what's up, bud? And I'm like, hey, I'm freaking out. I'm looking for advice. Has this happened to you before? And he was like, oh, all the time, man. He's like, I've almost lost both arms. And he sent me a picture and he's like, look at this. I just got this 2 hours ago. And he sent me a picture and his skin was rotting away and you could see bone. And I was like, what? What is that? And he went, it's necrosis. I got necrosis. I've been in a hotel binging. I got necrosis. Look it up. Look up necrosis. It's gross. And he told me to get this ointment. I was going to say it was called Sarna, but Sarna is an American ointment for dry skin. It sounded like Sarna or something. It had an S in it. He kept telling me to get it. And I start Googling it. I can't find it. And I called up Rite Aid. It was Rite Aid. I called and I'm like, hey, do you have this cream with I can't remember the name of it. And they were like, yeah, we have that. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there in like 10 minutes. I'm like rushing around. So I drive up to Rite Aid and I'm looking for this cream and I couldn't find it. Went to CVS, couldn't find the cream. I went to every pharmacy in my town and I could not find it. Finally, I get home and I tell him, I'm like, dude, I can't find this ointment or cream or whatever. And I said, where do you live? And he was like, I'm Eastern European. So I was like, dude, they don't sell that in America. And this guy was starting to give me bad vibes. I'm like, this guy doesn't want to help me at all. Like, maybe his original intention, but he just kept sending me pictures and talking about how he's binging in a hotel. And he kept sending me emojis that were rainbow colored. And I was like, is he trying to make a pass at me? I don't know. Maybe I'm like suspicious of people like that. And even if he was, more power to him, I guess. I eventually started talking to a second guy who was American. I think he lived in Texas. This guy saved my life. He became my mentor, my guide. He became my savior at that moment. The first thing I asked, I'm like, are you using? And he said, no, I've been clean for a while. He said, I saw your post. And listen. Here's the first thing you need to hear. It's going to be okay. And that just, my brain flooded with relief. And he said, send me a picture of the shot. And I wonder if I still have pictures of this. If I do, I'll share them.
I'm at urgent care right now because I have an abscess on my hand. This is what happens when you do stupid shit.
And he went, man, that actually doesn't look that bad. And I was like, I don't know, man, it hurts a lot. And I was really worried, because he was like, why do you shoot into your hands? That's really unsafe. And I was like, dude, it's the only place where I can shoot into. And he was like, well, dude, there's a lot of muscles and there's like 200 bones in your hand. And I was worried that the bump was getting so big that I was like, is this going to permanently damage my hand? And my biggest fear, I'm a guitar player. I'm like, what if I become, like, I have a gimp hand, I can't play guitar anymore? For me, that's like a fate worse than death.
I just might tell you mine, my head's already
the guy wrote out a step list. He said, go to the ER, dude. Don't be afraid. And I told him, I said, I went years ago and I had what was it? It was an abscess. And apparently abscesses aren't that bad. It's like, abscess is considered skin. Cellulitis is when it gets more serious because that's an infection of the muscle, I believe. And he said, if you're too afraid to go to the ER, go to urgent care first. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. A year prior to this, I went to the urgent care because I didn't sleep for 2 months, and they were a pretty big help. So I went to urgent care. I signed myself up. I knew I probably had a long wait. I immediately walk outside, and I call my best friend, Matt, who you should know about on this channel. I think I featured him in a video. And let me tell you first, Matt knows I was doing drugs at this time, but he didn't know I was injecting. So he picks up. He's like, hey, what's up, B? I said, Matt, I screwed up. And he's like, what's going on, dude? And I'm like, dude, listen, I was using needles. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, dude, I did it. I was using needles, man. And he was like, so what are you going to do? That's literally how Matt talks. What are you going to do, man? And I went, dude, I'm at urgent care. I hope they can treat me. And his voice kind of calmed me down there for a bit. So I said, Matt, I think they're calling me. Yeah, actually, they had it set up where when your doctor was ready, they would beam you on your phone. So I got off the phone with Matt, walked in. I had a nurse lead me to this little computer area. And I sat down, and I said, man, I'm freaking out. And he said, let me take a look at it. He looked at it. And it was, mind you, it's getting worse. The bump is getting bigger. It's getting more red. And I go, be honest with me. How often does this happen? How often do junkies come here because they got an infected hand or arm? And I'll never forget this. He said, oh, you'd be surprised. That's most of the people that come to urgent care. It's like 20 a week. And I was like, do any of them get amputated? And he went, nah, it never gets to that point. And that brought me great relief because I'm thinking my hand is going to get cut off. Mind you, I really hope I can find the footage of this because I film everything in my life, but that means I have like multiple hard drives with hours of footage. I'm positive I have footage of me at the urgent care that night. So I sat in urgent care, and at one point I was so nervous I had to lay on my back and like do breathing technique, Wim Hof breathing techniques to calm myself down. Eventually the doctor comes in. This guy looks overworked. He's kind of overweight. Real sweet guy. He looks really tired though. But he was very friendly. Like he did not look at me negatively because I'm an addict. And he looked at me and he said, I said, what is it? And he said, it's cellulitis. And I was like, oh no, because I Googled cellulitis, and cellulitis is pretty bad. I mean, a lot of people get cellulitis for reasons not having anything to do with drugs, but it is pretty serious. And he said, I'm going to prescribe you, what antibiotic was it? I don't remember. It was one of the weaker ones, though. Hold on, I'm going to look it up. It was cephalexin, which is like the weakest one. So right before I left that urgent care doctor, and I think I have this on footage, I said, because I was so just destroyed with nerves. And I think I almost cried when I said this. I was dude, I'm a guitar player. I can't be losing my hand. My good hand, my right hand.
I sent this to Edmonds Pharmacy.
Okay.
It's going to be one tablet twice a day for 10 days.
Okay.
And put the heat on.
Put the heat on. Okay.
If at
Is
any
it
time
normal for
they-
my hand to not be opening too well?
This covers the swelling.
Okay.
So if this gets worse, you're going to go to the hospital, you may need IV antibiotics.
Okay.
It should start to improve in 3 days. If it's not improving in 3 days, go to the hospital.
Okay.
Okay?
So a lot of times do people have to take the antibiotics and wait for it to get poppable, you know?
Sometimes.
Okay. So.
Sometimes it goes away.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much,
All
Doc.
right. Good luck.
Thank you.
I looked at him and I said, am I going to be okay? And he went, yeah, you'll be fine. Flooded with relief. So I go pick up my cephalexin, get home. Mind you, I'm texting this guy at this point that I met on the internet who agreed to help me. And he said, did you get antibiotics? And I said, yes. And he said, what kind? And I said, cephalexin. And he went, what? He was like, that's like the weakest one, dude. Why didn't they give you something stronger? I was like, I don't know. I didn't know to ask for something stronger. I was just grateful to get one. Here's the thing, though. I didn't know that when you take oral antibiotics, it often really takes about 2 weeks for them to start working orally. And I kept reading all these horror stories. People that get, like, real serious infections, they got to be put on IV antibiotics because apparently they work immediately. So I got home, went to sleep thinking this will all blow over by tomorrow. The next day I woke up and I looked at it and it was worse. It was bigger, it was redder. My hand really hurt, like it was radiating pain. I couldn't use my hand, and the worst part, I had to hide it from people. I didn't want anybody to know of what a stupid freaking mistake I made. And I'm messaging this dude who I'll never forget. Dude, I wish I could get him on this channel and interview him. Maybe I will. Maybe I still have his number. I texted him. He said, how's it going? And I said, it's worse, dude. And he said, send me a picture. I sent it to him. And he went, dude, yeah, I'm getting kind of worried for you. He's like, this is unusual. And I asked him, I was like, well, what happened to you? He said, I got cellulitis, and I was stupid, and I ignored it for a really long time, and I almost got my arm amputated. He said, when I was in the hospital, though, he said, and seriously, I believe him. He said, you know what healed it? And I said, what? He said, I literally had to stop freaking out. I had to calm myself down. And he said he started imagining it healing on a molecular level. And I thought, interesting. Now, I had just been getting more into Christianity at this point. And if you've ever wondered why, I use that piano song, Heart and Soul, a lot. Because that's my favorite song. Heart and Soul, to me, is like happiness converted into a melody. So if I'm ever having a bad time, I listen to Heart and Soul. So that whole day, I paced around with headphones on, going back between listening to two things. Heart and Soul, because that song calms me down. And two, the Jesus Prayer chant. And I was pacing around, and I couldn't even pray because I couldn't really bend my hand or anything. So I walked around, pacing around, doing the BLM fist, pacing back and forth all day, praying, listening to Heart and Soul, and praying, and just imagining it being healed. And no joke, it worked. Like, it would get really inflamed, and then I would pray and walk around and think positive thoughts, listening to Heart and Soul, and I would look, and it would get smaller. But then I would start getting really stressed out again, and it would start to inflame more. So that whole day pretty much was like, I was like bipolar, sort of jumping back and forth between, it's going to be okay, to, oh my God, they're going to cut my hand off, my guitar hand, my right hand. So I eventually got so worked up, I said, you know what, I don't think urgent care is going to take care of this. I'm going to go to the ER. So I drove to the ER. I had to use my left hand to drive. And I went in there, signed in, blah, blah, blah. And I sat down, and there was this girl, this like white girl, sitting next to me. And I am a smoker. I try to vape more these days. But smoking really calms my nerves. So you never know when you go to the ER And it's always good to bring somebody so you can do this, but you never know if it's going to take 5 hours or what. So I kept having to go out and smoke just to calm my nerves. And I looked to the girl next to me and I said, hey, my name is Brandon. If they call me, I'm not expecting you to tell them anything, but when I get back in, can you tell me that they called me? And the girl was kind of friendly. She was like, yeah, I'll do that. I said, okay. So I kept going out to smoke, coming back in, going out to smoke. And of course this happened. One of the times I went out to smoke, they called my name. So I walk back in after I smoke, and I'm about to sit down, and the girl looks at me. She's not as friendly anymore. She looked at me and went, they called you. And I was like, oh, really? Okay, thank you. And I was like, I walked up to the lady at the desk, and I'm like, hi, my name is Brandon. I lied. I was like, I had to go out and get my keys or whatever. They called my name, and she was so nice. She was like, oh, okay. Hold on. Let me just pick up the phone. I can call them. And I was like, great. She picked up the phone, and I could hear it ringing. I can't do a ring sound. And she's like, she didn't realize what to say. She went, Mr. Harmonti has arrived. Like I'm some famous rich guy. Brandon Harmonti has arrived. Bring in security. And I remember she's on the phone, and I can kind of hear, like, the other end. And it sounds like a very angry lady, like a nurse. And she's on the phone, and she goes like this. She was like, she looked at me, and she went, where did you go? Like, the person on the other end of the line was so angry, they were like, ask him where he went. And she was nervous. She was like, where did you go? And I said, I had to go get my keys or something. I had to go get my insurance card. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I need to be seen by a doctor because I'm stupid and I shoot typically not shot up things in my hand, and now I'm screwed. So the nurse comes out and she goes, Mr. Harmonti, come on. And I'm like, ooh, this ain't gonna be fun. It probably would have gone better had I not went out and smoked, but think of it from their perspective. They're like, this guy's coming in here with something he inflicted on himself, and he's out smoking. What can I say? It's what I did. So this nurse is walking me to whatever bed I'm going to be in. She's walking really fast, and I can tell this lady absolutely hates me. And to be honest, I have never been treated more like a pariah than on this night. She walked me back, and she goes, all right, sit down or lay down there. And I sit down and lay down, and she goes, all right, so what are you in here for? And I explain it. And she looks at it. Now, I think nurses are supposed to be real, be realistic, but don't say stuff that's going to terrify the patient. She looked at it and she went, oh God, that doesn't look good. It's definitely infected. And she looked at me in the eyes when she said that. And I was like, oh no. And I was like IV antibiotics? And she went, no. And I could tell, I think she realized she scared the piss out of me when she said that. She probably also realized I'm a human being. And so she was like, all right, the doctor will be in here soon, blah. She was just being really freaking rude. I could tell she hated me. And maybe I deserved it. I don't know. So finally the doctor comes in. He's like a young dude. He sits down. He's got a mask on. He kind of looks like he just got out of college. And he's like, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you more cephalexin. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Whatever's best, I guess. And I said to him, I said, will I lose my arm, or could I lose my arm or hand? And he went, no. He said, you have to let this go on for months to lose your hand. And that made me feel a lot better. So he said, all right, we good? I said, yep. And he left. I waited for a little bit longer, and I'll never forget, the nurse walked in, and she rushed in. She put the papers down, discharge papers, and she went, sign here. And I signed, sign here. Then the last paper to sign, I signed it. And she literally just ripped it out of my hands and walked out of the room. And I did. And I left. I was mad. A part of me was like, I should call and complain. But that's against my code. I don't believe in complaining about people who work in the service industry. I don't believe in it. So I didn't do that. But, I mean, seriously, she could have been a little nicer. I had to smoke those cigarettes. I was nervous. So a couple days go by, and it's getting worse and worse and more painful. And one day I woke up, and I noticed that the redness was going up my arm, and it looked kind of like bluish black. So I was like, oh my God, this nightmare will never end. It will never end. And I said, I'm going to the ER again. I'm going. I don't even care if I get that rude nurse. Like, this is serious. That guy, the doctor told me I'm not going to get amputated, but I don't believe them anymore. And I started reading all these Reddit stories about what happened before people got amputated. And that's exactly what they described. It's like a sort of blackness going up your arm. So I went to the ER and I sort of demanded a bed. I was like, I know I'm stupid. I made a mistake. Yes, I am a junkie. I'm also a human being, and I'm concerned. So I was like, I told him how it was. I told him what time it was. I'm like, you're gonna give me a bed, and you're gonna give me IV antibiotics, or I'm gonna do a thing. You ain't. I'll do. So I got a bed. And I got antibiotics, IV form. And the doctor that looked at it was like, yeah, this is pretty serious. I'm really glad you came here. And I told him, I said, the doctor said it was impossible. And they were like, which doctor said that? They were like, no, dude, this was bad. This, like, looks really bad. And I'm sure it looked bad before it started going up your arm. So I was in the hospital for a total of about 2 or 3 days, got IV antibiotics, and it healed itself very, very fast. Got home, and this is technically the end of the story. The bump was still there for a long time, and it still hurt for a long time. I eventually went and saw a hand doctor in Baltimore, and he did a x-ray thing. And you could see on the x-ray there's like a little, but he just basically said, don't shoot in that hand anymore. You should be okay. And a few times after that, it hurts every once in a while. Yesterday, it started hurting again. I typically do this. You go like, this is what people with carpal tunnel do. But it hurts to do it today. Go like this. That hurts. Ah, man, it hurts today. I'm freaking out. And here's the other scary thing. A few of you subscribers know I've been taking an eczema shot, and one of the side effects is joint pain. And I know this because, yes, this shot completely takes away my eczema, but days after I get the shot, my knee joints hurt. So now I'm like, oh man, is the shot making it hurt again? I don't know. So I don't have eczema anymore. Is my joint and my wrist gonna hurt even more? Honestly, one of the dumbest things I've ever done, one of the scariest experiences I've ever went through. And I really hope, I'm sure people are out there judging me as they watch this. I've made tons of bad decisions. I will air them all out on this channel in the future. I've got 1,000 stories. So if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe somebody in the future will watch this who did the same thing as I did, and they want somebody to tell them it's going to be okay or what to do. Go to the ER, go to urgent care, take care of it, never ignore it. Fuck, I keep almost clapping, I can't. Hope you all have a good day.
at urgent care right now because I have an abscess on my hand. This is what happens when you do stupid shit.